All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's feature launch demonstration of the Socrata Open Data Connector for Microsoft Office 365. I am your host, Bryant Lau, and I'm joined by my colleague, Colin Spikes, who will be leading today's presentation. Before we begin, just a couple housekeeping items I'd like to cover. First of all, today's session is being recorded, and after we end, you will receive a confirmation email with a link to the recording that you can review at any time. Second, there will basically be no slides besides the ones you see right now for today's presentation. This is very much going to be a live demonstration, so slides will not necessarily be the most appropriate medium, but again, you will have the recording. And then lastly, we will have a live Q&A session at the end of our presentation today. Also, don't forget that at any point that you do have questions, feel free to enter them within the questions box you see on the right of your screen. I will be here monitoring that and happy to answer any technical questions that you may have. So without any further wait, I will go ahead and transfer it over to Colin, who will do today's presentation.
All right, thank you, Brian. This is Colin Spikes from Socrata. I'm a data solution architect here, and today I'm going to present to you Socrata's Open Data Connector for Office 365. I'm just going to take the presenter role, and we'll start to show you what this looks like. All right, excellent. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. So at Socrata, we work hard every day to make data more useful to more people in more ways. We have launched multiple products, whether it's through our award-winning open data platform, our GovStaff performance tracking tools, or our easy-to-use Socrata Open Data API. We strive to deliver the most user-friendly way for the widest variety of users to access open data and provide a targeted experience for their needs. Today, I'm excited to demonstrate the release of the Socrata Open Data Connector for Microsoft Office 365, a new feature that delivers native support for Microsoft Excel, the newly released Power Query feature, and Microsoft Power BI for Office 365 and Power Query tools right from your desktop. By adding support for the Open Data Protocol, or OData, which is an open standard for accessing data over the web, users will be able to seamlessly access data sets from within Excel, spreadsheets, and keep them in sync as data changes. So as data gets updated behind the data sets that you brought into Excel using the Open Data Connector, you're always going to be able to keep these data sets up to date. And once users have loaded the data into Excel, they'll be able to use familiar tools to discover available data sets from within Power Query, make use of open data within Excel to build models and perform analysis, analyze data using sophisticated features like Power Pivot and Power Map in Excel, as well as build and share dashboards using Microsoft Power BI for Office, and visualize the data using charting tools in Excel. And once again, best of all, you're going to be able to leverage the Open Data Protocol to make sure that you always have the most recent, up-to-date information within your worksheets. So today, we're going to look at how you can actually work with the Open Data Connector for Office and walk through some examples that our customers, we imagine could use. So today, I'm going to be playing the role of a data analyst, someone at the City of Chicago who needs to assess areas of crime and impact on student achievement to make some decisions about how to focus police patrols to decrease crime near schools. To do this, I need to be able to access data across a couple different departments, the police department and the school department, to be able to perform this analysis. And because Socrata has a central repository where all this data is stored, it works to break down silos that have existed between these departments in the past. In Socrata, every single data set is indexed down to the field level. So I can search for data in here and find it for my analysis as a data analyst. I'm just going to search for crime within the City of Chicago. And we're going to search through this data set and search through this catalog and find all the data sets, maps, and visualizations that contain that word. But what Socrata does is really consumerize access to data. And so with this, we'll be able to filter the results down to data sets that we're looking for. I'm just looking for data, not charts or maps. So we're filtering this down to just those particular data sets. And now that I have them in front of me, I'm going to open up the crime data set from 2001 to present. Now, using Socrata, you're automatically able to interact with data online in the web. And what I want to do today is pull this data down to Excel so that as a data analyst who's comfortable with using Excel and has used it for years, that I can perform the analysis that I need to do in the environment that I'm comfortable with. So in Socrata, I'm just going to click the Export tab and then open up OData and copy this URL right here that provides my link into Socrata from Excel. Now let's open up Excel. You can see I've already loaded in this data set that we just looked at for the sake of time on this demonstration. Now using Excel and the Power Map feature, I'm going to go ahead and create a heat map which shows the density of crime within the city of Chicago. And in just a few moments, we're going to compare this to school locations so that I can make a better decision about where to focus police patrols near schools. Let's go ahead and open up Power Map. And we'll open up our crime heat map that we've created here. In Power Map, I'm able to use the geocoding functionality that's built into Socrata that identifies the latitude and longitude of every single data point that has an address that's loaded into the platform to create a map like this, which shows the density of crime throughout the city of Chicago. Using Power Map, I can explore this data. I can rotate around it, I can zoom in, and I can change my base maps and add other layers to this. With what we're looking at right now, I feel like I have a good picture of where crime is occurring within the city. It's obvious that this part on the northeast side and down here in the south side of Chicago have the most crime. Now, I want to be able to compare this to schools and identify which schools are below average in their student performance and achievement and are located in these crime areas so that we can assess the impact of that crime on student achievement. So let's go ahead and look for some data in Socrata from the school district. Let's go back into the Socrata platform and search now for data about school performance. I'm just going to clear my previous search and we'll search for this now using school report card as the search term. Socrata is going to search through all the data sets in here and find the ones that have a matching title or metadata or data within the cells so that I can access this. Before we had Socrata, I had to coordinate with different departments, ask them for their data, but now I can find all the data from the school district in one place. And I'm going to bring this into Excel using OData. So let's go ahead and open up the Chicago Public Schools High School Progress Report Cards. Again, I'm able to interact with this data right on the web with Socrata, but I want to pull it into Excel. So this time I'm going to grab this OData link right here, and we'll just go ahead and copy this out of Socrata. Now let's pull this into Microsoft Excel. I'm going to open up a new sheet, and we'll use the Power Query tools to connect to this data from another source. In this case, we're going to use the OData feed. This is built right into Office 365. So I'm able to bring this data in using a dynamic feed using the OData protocol API. Let's just go ahead and connect to that. Now I have this box up. I'll paste in my address for this particular data set, and I'll have the option to edit my query before I bring this data in. This is extremely powerful. Before I bring my data in, I can choose to filter this out by the type of school or its location. I can choose to remove columns, such as these two school ID columns that I don't need. I can just go ahead and take those out before I bring this data set in. And you'll notice that up here I have this button to refresh. So as I get new data about crime within the city of Chicago, or the school report card gets updated with the latest results of this last academic year, I'm going to be able to update this workbook that I'm creating right now to make sure I have the most recent data in it. So I don't have to go and download the data again and rebuild my workbook. I can just refresh this dynamically and I'll get the latest data in here. Now that I've made my changes, I'm going to go ahead and apply and close this and bring this into Excel. You'll notice that now I have this query that shows all the data that we just looked at, but stripped out the columns that I didn't want. And if I had pre-filtered this to look at only schools that were above average or below average, it would show that as well. Next, I'm going to use a pivot table to analyze this data and to look at how many schools we have that are underperforming or far underperforming within the school district. Let's go ahead and insert a pivot table. I've selected my data that I want to use and the range within it, and we'll press OK. Now I'm going to use the pivot table building tools to show me how many schools within the district are not performing up to value. So we'll just go ahead and drag in our number of schools, and then I'm going to look at student performance levels for my rows. And so with just a few clicks using the power of Excel and Power Pivot, I'm able to see how many schools are above average, below, and far below average. These are the schools that I really want to focus on, these schools that are far below average and below average. But first, let's look at how many of these are in a way that's a little bit more user-friendly. Since most people are visual learners, I'm going to go ahead and create a pie chart that shows how many of these schools are at different levels, so that I can share this with other people and they really understand the impact of crime on student achievement based on the number of people or number of schools that are below average. So just by highlighting that text and then inserting a 3D pie chart, I'm able to get a sense in a visual aspect of how many of these schools are far below average or below average within the district. And this is great. It informs me about how many schools we really need to look at student achievement. But what I really want to do is compare this to crime to see what the impact of crime has been on student achievement and make a decision about where we can focus police patrols within the city of Chicago to reduce the number of schools that are far below average due to the impact of crime. So let's go back to the sheet that I've already embedded here. Now what I want to do is create a map to show the location of all these schools in Chicago and related to the crime levels. So let's go ahead and open up PowerMap again. Just going to open up PowerMap and we'll use the existing map that we just created. But now what I want to do is pull in my school information. So right here, I've got the query that I brought in from Socrata. And what I first need to do is select my location fields. I've got a latitude and a longitude here that have been geocoded by Socrata's geocoding engine using the addresses when it was uploaded into the platform. Now that I've got my schools mapped here, represented by these orange squares, I'm going to go to the next step. I want to color code these to show me which one of these schools are below and far below average on student achievement. Let's go ahead and find that student performance a column that's in this data set. Here we go, student performance level. And I'll just drag this into my category section. And we're automatically now presented with a thematic map that shows me and color-coded which schools are above average, far below average, and below average. Let's go ahead and zoom in and take a closer look at this. Earlier, we saw that this area on the northeast side and the south side of Chicago had the most crime. And now that I have my schools on here, I'm easily able to identify which of these schools are located in high crime zones, and I need to make more investment in police patrols. It's clear that there's a number of underperforming schools within this area where there's a high crime rate, and a few over in this section as well. These would be two good areas to focus increased police patrols around schools to decrease the amount of crime that's occurring near these schools and impacting student performance. So this is just, what we looked at today is just one way that you can use the power of open data through Socrata's new Open Data Connector for Office 365 to empower business analysts and data analysts within your organization to drive decision-making using data in Excel. It's an environment that most of them are comfortable working in, but with Socrata, they're able to access these open data feeds, pull that into Excel, and always make sure they have the most recent, up-to-date information that they're working with. After they've created workbooks and analyses like this, they can then save them and share them with other people in the office by sharing the workbook. I'm going to pause right now and see if there's any questions about the demonstration that we've seen.
Looks like we do actually have one question that came in. We have a person asking, is this currently available on their Socrata portal?
Yes, this should be rolled out to every single Socrata portal right now. If for some reason you're not seeing it, just contact us and we'll make sure we turn it on for you.
And do you want to go ahead and maybe just show exactly where they can find that?
Absolutely. On any Socrata portal, whether it's City of Chicago or Seattle or any of the other ones. Simply just go to your any data set that's within here that has these rows and columns in it, and click the Export tab. And then under Export, underneath Open the SODA API, you'll see OData. Just expand that out and copy this link here. And this will allow you to pull this exact data set into Excel in a dynamic feed using the OData protocol. I hope that answers your questions. Do we have any other questions, Brian?
We do actually. So, so just to be clear to answer that question, though, this is basically a feature that's on every single Socrata data set.
That's right.
And it's already rolled out. So if you have a Socrata platform, you can go ahead and start using the feature already. Next question we have, actually got a couple more coming in.
Okay.
From Victoria Lewis, who I believe is with Montgomery County, if I remember right. Does this require Excel 2013 to be installed?
This does not require Excel 2013 to be installed. You can use Excel 2010. In Excel 2010, you simply just use, it looks a little bit different, but you use the data tab right here to import data from other sources on this button on the ribbon.
And a follow-up question to that, does it require Office 365 G3 or E3?
I think either edition of Office 365 will work. Some of the things that you've seen today, like the map that I just created, require the Power Map plugin, which is a free plugin from Microsoft.
We have another question here. When you save the data in Excel, does it automatically update on the site?
That's a great question. So right now, when you save data within Excel, let's say in this data set about schools, I change the name of the school or the address or its performance level, it would not actually push that change back up to Socrata. When you're connecting to the data set using the Open Data connector for Office 365, you simply just have a read connection to it. And there really isn't any built-in tools within Excel to write to another site using OData. So it's just a read connection right now. It won't change any of the data that you're connecting to.
But we do have other means of updating the Socrata portal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have another question. This one's from Jonathan Levy, who lives in the City of Chicago. He's had problems with Excel 2010, but we have standard edition. Is that sufficient?
No, actually, you need the professional edition of Excel 2010 to use Open Data, the OData connector.
We keep getting a bunch of questions. This is great. Does it conflict with Esri mapping for Office?
Does it conflict with Esri mapping for Office?
That's one we have to answer offline. I don't know.
Yeah, that may be one we have to think about a little bit more and answer offline.
Okay. We can follow up with you directly on that one.
Yeah.
And get back to you. Let's see. Can it pull data in from other than Excel?
So you can use the OData protocol is a standard protocol that's used across industry. Other software vendors, other products use OData as a standard way to communicate data on the web. So you could use another application using the OData feed that we looked at today. We were thinking that most people are going to be using this in Excel, but there are certainly other options for using the Open Data connector.
Okay. And again, a related question to what systems it can work with is, does the version of Office 365 matter here, or is all Office 365?
What I would recommend doing is checking with your Microsoft representative or salesperson just to confirm which version. I'm using the professional version here, but other versions work as well.
We have one last question here. Is it possible to combine multiple Socrata data sets into one visualization within Excel?
Yes, absolutely. So we looked at one example today of how I could combine two different data sets into one visualization on a map. That's just one example. You could combine other data sets into a chart type of visualization using Excel. In those cases, you just want to have two fields within them, like a primary key that you can use to join those two fields together. You could use a name, you can use an address, or you can use an ID that you might find in data sets.
Questions keep rolling in, so this is great. If you have any more, keep sending them our way. We're glad to answer them. We do have about 5 or so minutes left to actually answer questions during the scheduled time for this webinar. So this next question comes from Eric, and he asks, could you write up a quick guide on how to connect the data with Excel 2010? So just as a possible note there, I think we do have a support article that we have released. Okay.
Yeah, there's an article already on our support site. That's support.socrata.com. Just search for Open Data or OData, and you'll find an article there that describes and gives you an outline for how you can walk through some of the steps that we just went through today.
Do you mind pulling that up just to kind of show people where all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pulling up Socrata's support page right now, and simply just search the knowledge base for, I'll just use OData in this case as the key term. And there should be a support article in here. There we go, analyzing Socrata data using the Open Data connector. So this article has screenshots in it and walks you through the process of connecting to data sets just as we've seen today.
When will Microsoft index these sources? Do you know if that's something that they are currently doing, or?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. What I would recommend is that I think that's a good question to ask to Microsoft is when they'll be indexing these sources.
A couple more questions related to what version of Excel is needed for this, Pro or Standard, or is there another one?
Yeah. So those are great questions. Why don't we do this, Brian? Why don't we send out a follow-up email to some of the folks have been and just clarify what versions of Excel you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could also check with your Microsoft representatives to ask them what version you need, and I'm sure they can help you out with that as well.
Okay. Great. We still get a couple more questions. So as you layer analysis, is it possible to have some degree of version control and go to different level of prior analysis without having to recreate the analysis? There's varying levels of version control as you go through this within Excel, I imagine.
So there's a few different ways that you could do that. You could save different versions of your workbook or worksheets that you have. It's also keeping track of all the queries that I pull in. So I pulled in a couple different here, but it will keep track of them as you're connecting to them. So there's a few different ways that you can approach version control, and that's another one where I'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one conversation with whoever's asking that question and go into more detail about how we could do that.
Okay. We have one more question here. This is great. Tons of questions. I love it. Can you show one more time how to refresh the data in Excel?
Sure. So right here, we're on the Data tab. This is the data set that I brought in using the OData connector. And right here, you just press the Refresh All button, and it's going to refresh my connection. You can see it's working right now to refresh. And there we go. It just refreshed all my data that's in here. Okay, sure why that's happening, but that is how you would refresh your data.
The joy of a live demo. Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have right now. If there are any other questions that you may have, feel free to go ahead and email us. I think Colin, it's just colin.fikes@socrata.com.
That's right.
We'll be able to answer any questions you may have regarding the OData connector. Give people a couple more chances here to ask a question. I think we're good. All right, so I think we'll actually be able to end on time here. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure to demonstrate this to you today, and we're all very excited about the release of this new feature.
Great. Thank you, everyone.